Welcome to TechMark Pod, where we innovate, discuss, and discover the dynamic intersection of technology and marketing. In each bi-weekly episode, we explore how businesses can leverage both to drive growth and innovation. Meet Alvin, our esteemed host for TechMark Pod. With over 15 years of experience as a renowned marketer, project manager, and software as a service architect, Alvin is passionate about leveraging marketing technology and strategic thinking to drive innovation and success.
Welcome to TechMark Pod. My name is Alvin, your host. Today I've been joined by Miri. Right, so I want to introduce Miri with a story, how I met Miri. That is like last year in September at our WordPress meetup. So when I met Miri and I was having a conversation, just telling her about my ambitions, basically my dreams, I should say. So I was talking about how I want to start a tech marketing podcast, which is something that has been there for years. And then Miri was like, dude, what are you waiting for? And I'm like, I don't know how to do these things. Where do I start? I don't even have a mic. I don't even have the studios. And she gave me one or two tips and I'm like, okay, cool. You know what? I'm going to start now. I would like to credit this to you. For the first time, I'm going live and I'm saying, I'll credit this to you to say, thank you, Miri. Here I am today. And I mean, here's the TechMark Pod and this is what you pushed me to do. You know what I mean? So welcome to TechMark Pod again.
Thank you so much. And it is a pleasure to finally be here. I'm not your first guest, but it's fine, you know.
Yeah.
I am just thrilled to be sitting here with you and let's talk about marketing.
Definitely. So I want you to actually introduce yourself. You know, I know you know yourself better than anybody else. So please do introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Muriel. I am a Pan-African marketing strategist professional. I've been in the industry for 16 plus years. I've worked in diverse sectors. For example, nonprofit, education. I've worked with financial services as well as travel and energy. So I have a vast, experience, of working with multiple sectors. But yeah, I'm glad to be here to chat to you today.
Definitely. But currently, what are you doing so that,
Oh, exciting time.
I know you're a speaker. I know you're a speaker. I've actually seen you on YouTube somewhere.
Yeah.
And you've been interviewing these, mining what do you call it? Conglomerates. What do you call it? The big word. Yeah. I see ministers from African countries and presidents. You've been doing very, very well. Please, I need to know what exactly you're doing at the moment.
Wow. So one of my businesses that I have is in the energy media space. Well, media in general. And it's split into two sectors, the travel industry as well as the energy sector. And there I have been fortunate enough to meet with these extremely influential, powerful people in these different sectors and to talk about what their plans are. I think when people look at Africa and what Africa is doing, it's always like, oh, they're not doing anything. Oh, nothing's happening. We're not actually improving. So I've been fortunate enough to be in spaces where I can talk to that decision maker and say, okay, seriously, what is happening with this? I'm sure you're well aware that Africa as a whole has a huge energy problem, right? Yeah. Not a lot of people. I think it's like a third of our population, billion people, a third of us have access to reliable electricity. Yeah. So I had the opportunity to meet with, these ministers, these presidents to talk about what plans are they making, what decisions are they making that can actually change this. Because once we have electricity, we can then transform, right?
Definitely.
Growth, our GDP will move. Yeah, so I've been fortunate enough to have those opportunities.
Definitely, a dedicated electricity supply. It's a good economy. Just think about, if you drive around the Midrand, there's a lot of data centers that have come up, and those data centers, they need a dedicated, electricity, and so which means there's industry that will come through because of, such initiatives. But today we're talking about marketing, right? So I thought maybe we should talk about the transition of, companies, most likely engineering or any other company, that are transitioning from servicing their public sector clients to private sector. So what we have noticed of late is many companies are having that transition, but that transition involves a lot of marketing and possibly tech, because there are systems that needs to be built, and most of those companies, they don't understand why they need marketing. So, question to you, why do they need marketing?
Like going right off the bat, for me, what I've seen as well is that as an organization that has initially been servicing the public sector, the requirements to be able to do that work, you don't need to, have a digital presence or anything like that. You just need your company registration as well as your other compliance documents to be able to start going. So as they decide to transition to private sector where the ball game is different, we need to see your value, we need to see your history, we need to see what else are you doing, right? So in that place, marketing is vital to that transition. It's like how you articulate yourself, whether you are networking, presenting at events, you're pitching, all your documentation, whether it's digital, whether it's your physical products, your banners, your design, what does your brand represent? So for an organization that needs to go from 0 to 100 very quickly, they are coming up like a startup, right?
Definitely.
So they need to be able to say, okay, this is what we're doing. This is how we're going to attract customers so that they can continue doing business. Because at the end of the day, in public sector, it's not a long-term thing.
Definitely,
right?
it's not a long term, because at the end of the 3 years they get another service provider to provide the same service. So what is your life after, the 3 years? So we want to talk about their marketing assets. Let's talk about website, right? Both you and I, we are part of the Joburg WordPress team. I don't know what's your take on these companies' websites?
I think when you look at maybe 30 years ago, a company needed to have a phone number, right?
Yeah.
For them to do business, they needed to have a physical phone. You pick up, you dial.
That's all.
But now it's changed. Now you need to have a website. It's like the most basic thing that you need to have, because that is where companies, individuals can find out who you are and they can learn more about your value and your services. So what I like about WordPress as a platform is that it's very quick and it's very easy for anyone, not just, a developer or a web designer, someone who can start their business very quickly. And you can show your presence. So if I meet you at a conference and say, oh, okay, how do I learn more about you? You just send me the link and it's done. Yeah. I've answered 10 different questions just by browsing your website. But if an organization doesn't have that minimum, then it's like, okay, you're not serious. You're not ready to do business. So for me, having a website, being available and being found online is paramount.
Definitely. So I've also actually noticed with these companies, right, when they're in the tender business, they don't have websites at all. They don't have an internet footprint. You can't find them. They are not on LinkedIn. They are nowhere to be seen, But when you come to private sector, for argument's sake, let's say you are a company, engineering company, and you are providing probably solar services, right? And in the private sector, the one who wants to buy your solar service, it's another maybe business that wants to buy those services. And how they find you, they search on it. They search online. And if you notice how searching online and technology accelerated just after COVID or during COVID and up to now, people spend more time searching. And it's important to input those keywords on your website for you to be found. And if you don't have a website, it's like you're dead. So that's how important it is to have your website and have search engine optimization. And I want to bring you back to this discussion. Email marketing. So email marketing is like one of the oldest marketing tactics, but it has been in place for so many years, but it's still very efficient. What do you think? What's your take on that?
I will say that I love email marketing.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I'm biased because I work in marketing, but when you see the engagement, people are always on an email. I think people have multiple email addresses. Yeah. I personally do. Where I have my work email, which is very focused on work. I've got my personal one where you see, personal stuff. And then you've got, the back end one where it's like, okay, I'm not sure what I might get from here, but it has value. So you find a lot of people have multiple channels that they're willing to be communicated with. So you find that as a marketing professional, as an organization that wants to reach people, first you start with your website and then you start with email marketing, because there it's periodic. You're giving them updates on what you're offering, what the latest deals are. People are willing to click, but it has to be attractive. You can't just say, hi, I'm here. This is a tick mark and click here.
Definitely.
Like, this is why it matters now. So it brings more urgency, and you can tailor it. You can use color, you can use, nice design buttons and all that. So email marketing for me is a way for business to express itself and to come out there and say, hey, this is what I have for you and this is why it matters. So
I think whilst you're talking about that, right, it takes me back to these companies that we're talking about, the engineering or the companies that used to be doing tenders. They actually need to start from scratch. It's like a startup. So I've also realized that their corporate identity is not in place at all. They don't know what their brand mean. And we need to redefine it as marketers. And it's something that is possibly happening now of late. Moving into 2025, picked up some companies, and some in mining, some in engineering, some in tech as well, that are transitioning back to private sector. You understand? So us as marketers, we need to do more for them. Let's talk about social media. What is the importance of this company's social media? Maybe for argument's sake, let's give an example of a company, engineering or energy sector. Which platforms should they use to reach their customers?
That for me, I have a love-hate relationship with social media, mostly because depending on what platform you choose,
definitely,
people will just watch, but the ROI is not as great as it should be. For an organization that wants to reach other organizations, so your B2B, I'd find that LinkedIn is powerful, YouTube is powerful, just to get your brand out there. If you want to showcase the more people side, the humanity side of your organization, so for example, if your HR team had a team day, or if you went and met with partners, you were networking at a specific event, the Instagrams and the TikToks is great for that, because there people want to scroll, they want to watch, they want to share, and it gets the conversation going. The idea with social media for me is that you remain topical, that you remain at the top of people's minds, because now that we are more into short form content, people aren't watching, long things anymore. Just give me bite size, 15, 30-second, 1 minute long content. There you have to be straight to the point. So a social media strategy is important if you want to remain topical, if you want to remain on people's lips. But if you want to drive business, especially if you're in the energy or whatever, if you're more B2B sort of thing, LinkedIn is great, because there you're talking to other business people. You can create similar content, but on LinkedIn, it's like, I know that I'm reaching out, or I'm going to follow this organization because they're in a business that I have an interest in. YouTube as well, you're more long form. I think YouTube now does shorts.
Yeah, that does shorts as well.
Yeah, which I guess is competing with TikTok.
Yeah, and I think also, Spotify, they're doing shorts. Like everybody's moving to short
form content, because that's where people are. Also, to less work, right? You don't have to create an hour-long piece of content, but you're still able to communicate your message. So YouTube is great if you want to showcase, we were at, this conference, and this is what we did, and these who talked to, that sort of thing. But I find that the organizations that succeed are everywhere, right? Their strategy may be different per platform, but they are present everywhere, because you don't know where your customer will find you, right?
Yeah.
I could be, your wife could be on Instagram and she sees, this might be of value to you. Meanwhile, you are on LinkedIn, but you're still from the same household, right? But no matter what, that information will come to you.
Definitely. I always say marketing sometimes a trial and error. It's not really like, straightforward, but of course we know how to then work with the brand and make sure that we get results. You know what I mean? So talking about back to social media, right? I think you mentioned something about you need to then marry your brand and the social media platform, right? And we talk about engineering, possibly you want to go to LinkedIn, right? And there are certain brands that want to use maybe TikTok and all that stuff. So I was having a conversation with one client, right? And they are into engineering, and they were like, why do we need social media? You understand? But then when I then search for this client on Google, or on any such platform, they are not there. They are not available. Then I explained to them, okay, let's look at your brand awareness. Where are you with brand awareness? Who knows you? and nobody knows you. If we search for you, we can't find you.
Yeah.
Let's look for the service that you're providing. You're providing solar energy, you provide electrical, you're providing civil engineering. None of those, and you don't appear in any of those. So my question to you now is, do they need to create brand awareness as they transition?
That's like the minimum. Like, you have to be found. And it's not about who you know. I
Yeah.
know you, Alvin, but do you know me? That is the real question, because then you will know, oh, Miri does XYZ. I know someone who does ABC. You guys can meet up. So social media, having a social media presence as an organization is so important, because that's how people interact with you. That's how people get to share. As a bare minimum, what you should be doing is ensuring that your business is creating content that is relevant and providing value to the people who may be watching. Doesn't matter what the platform is. I mean, you were talking about TikTok.
Yeah.
I've seen so many businesses that are now moving to TikTok and leaving other platforms because they're seeing that there's more value there. It's easier to share content from there.
In short form.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be a video. You can also do pictures. I think you can do a maximum of like 10 or 20 pictures on TikTok as well. So you're not limited on what you can do. And yeah, I think it's important. Being on social media, your website, your emails, it's your footprint.
Definitely. So one other item that I found out when dealing with these companies is they've done a lot of work, amazing work, whether they build a bridge or maybe they've done electrification of a rural area somewhere down in Northern Cape or whatever it is they've done. But they don't have the stories. These stories have been told. No one knows that they are capable of doing that. Do you understand? And as marketers, we would want to tell the stories of a brand to say, we've done this and done that, because you need to brag of your expertise. Do you understand? And I realize many of them, if they don't have a website, it's of course they don't have a portfolio to showcase what they've done. So I want to come back to the importance of a portfolio in marketing.
And here I thought you were going to go into storytelling.
Of course, it's part of storytelling. Remember, you need to actually tell a story. How do you do it? How do you benefit the community, or what is it that you do, your expertise? From there we can, if I'm a client who wants to buy those services, I can be able to tell that company XYZ, they can do the work with safety or quality or whatever it is, compliance that is there. So what's your take on portfolio and storytelling?
So I will start with this. For me, we aren't businesses doing, even though we say B2B, it's not a business doing work with another business. It's people doing work with people. And that's where the storytelling comes in. For you to have an affinity to my brand, you have to understand my story, like my journey. Like, you started this conversation with how you and I first met and how this podcast began. That is now the foundation. That's the story of Techmark. It came up as a spur of the moment conversation that pushed you to now begin. And you'll find that with a lot of organizations, their story is their brand. It's how they'll eventually position themselves, and that becomes their narrative. So you'll find that as you tell your story, as you say, you electrified a rural community, and this is what it has done. It's about showcasing your impact. So now that you can go out there and say, we've electrified, and now 10,000 people have access to electricity. Now this young person has street lights. They can walk home safely, right? That story and how it's packaged, which is why marketing is so important. It's how you package those stories that some other community says, we need this too. We need to get this work. So being able to get your stories and say, okay, how do we position ourselves? How do we tell our story so that people understand who we are, what we're capable of, and what our mission is? And as you begin to do that, whether you decide to put your portfolio on your website or you want a pretty document that lives, on your coffee table so as people walk in, or you can even share it on your weekly newsletter or social media. As you begin to tell your story, it becomes your reputation. So then we know that we can trust this person to give them business. But if no one can find you, if you haven't told your story for the last 20 years that you've been working with public sector, no one will trust you. And to get business, for someone to part with money that they've worked on,
definitely,
you have to have that portfolio.
Do you think that speaks also to brand positioning?
Oh, Oh yeah, completely.
Yeah.
You know, how you position your business is so important. You know, am I working with financial sector only?
Yeah.
Do I live and speak financial services? I'm sure you've heard me talk
Yeah,
about energy
definitely.
enough time.
Yeah.
So no matter what, if you meet someone else like, oh, tell us about Mira. She does travel and energy and other things. She's in the media space. You can now represent me as you go out there and you're talking to other people. Positioning your brand is so important. Like that's how you get out there. That's how you get a thriving business.
Wow. I think there's a lot that, this kind of SMEs can do when they're transitioning from public to private. So when we talk about storytelling, it makes me think about blogging. Blogging, it's an old thing that we've been doing for so many years. I mean, if you're a WordPress fanatic, you would know we started blogging so many years ago. 2001, I think, we started blogging. So it's a skill that not everyone has. You know what I mean? So does it mean that we still need to have those blogging sections on our website? We now call them insights, depending on the
On the industry.
on the industry. You know what I mean? What's your take on? I'm sure you have written a couple of blog articles.
A couple.
Okay,
it's like
many.
every single day.
No, but actually, you need to. I know you transitioned from the written blog to vlogging.
No, I still do written blogs.
Oh, you do written blog as well?
No, I'm still writing every single day.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, take us through.
So I think this is actually where technology has been growing, and a lot of these search engines, they use these blogs on your company website as a foundation for your reputation,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
it helps with your keywords. And so when people talk about keyword and SEO, which is search engine optimization, it's like,
Yeah.
how best are you positioning yourself online so that people know who you are? So for me to grow my first business, well, the first one that actually worked, I started writing every single day. And as I was writing, I used the same similar words. It was travel, it was Africa, it was young or youth, and it was explore, it was wanderlust. So you see those keywords. When someone is searching online like holiday, South Africa, travel or trip, and my website started to show up because I had so many pages. I think at the time I had like 1,000 pages. I'd been doing it for like 3 years. 1,000 articles that had those words. So Google says, yes, she knows what she's talking about.
Yeah.
So you can trust her to give you the right information to answer your questions. So a lot of organizations, I feel, should be doing that, because the more content you're putting up there, it builds your reputation. So it's like you going to a conference and every person you talk to, you're mentioning the same thing. As someone else will then see you like, oh yeah, that guy talks about this, right?
Yeah.
So your blog, it helps with your positioning online, right?
Definitely.
So even though it could be a white paper, it could be stories of impact, it could be different types of content. It could be lists. I know lists perform very well online. So it's like the top 10 places to visit in South Africa, or the top 10 tools to use in civil engineering. I don't know what they do there.
For some reason, that ranks very well. And I feel like everyone copied the content. If you look at when we back to travel, Booking.com, all of them, they have the same.
All of them.
They've got all the same content. I've noticed that. Yeah.
Exactly. And which is why they rank so well, because Google says, okay, this website has been in existence for the last 20 years and they talk about this thing all the time. If another one that has been around for 5 years is talking about something similar, it's like, okay, great. You can come closer because, you're talking about the same thing. So I find that as you continue to talk about similar topics and you're in a specific industry, and as you get, an SEO specialist to support you to build that website, as you write more of these stories, then your positioning is better. Then people can find you because it's like, I know this company that is in this location and it's near me. It's like half a kilometer away. Let me try them out. So
I think it has to do with consistency.
Exactly.
Consistency. You keep on putting up the same message continuously. So I want to bring you back. That was actually a theory, right, by Pavlov. Right. So Pavlov realized that if you keep on ringing a bell, the dog will know it's time to eat.
Yes.
So we use that in marketing. Repetitive exposure. So you keep on giving them the same message, and they'll most likely gravitate towards your brand because they'll be like, okay, I need marketing, I go to somebody digital. I need tech, I need to go to this company and others. And this is what our SMEs need to, they need to do that for their brand as they transition to private sector. Exactly. And that's how they possibly survive in the next 10 to 20 years, because private is different from public sector. So let's talk about something else again. Do you think as a form of content creation, podcasting will be good for these organizations?
Extremely. People want to consume content. It could be photos, could be video, could be audio. There's so many organizations. For example, Amazon's Audible, where you can listen to conversations, you can listen to updates. I know how it's made. I think they also have a podcast where they're just talking about how you build a microphone. So it could be the most, you don't know what people's interests are. And if you are an organization, you've mentioned engineering company, and you're talking about how they are building something, right? Yeah. Discussing those stories in a podcast format. One, audiences are familiar with podcasts. Yeah. So if you say I've got a podcast, definitely, they already know what to expect.
They know exactly.
So now it depends on how the title of your podcast, the sort of content, sort of if you have guests, what sort of content you're putting up there, people will gravitate to it. It helps support your brand. And I find that having a video as well as audio is like a double barrel, right? You're gonna.
It's a no-brainer.
Exactly. So you have the same content. Your video works for the video platforms, for those who want to watch, Miri waving her hands as she talks, versus someone who's like, okay, I'm on the treadmill and I just want to hear this conversation, right? So either way, podcasting is where I find the future is going. I was so big on podcasts. Yeah. And then now I've got my own. I'm like, okay, let's see what's new out there. So, yeah.
Yeah, speaking of that, how do we get hold of you on your podcast?
Oh.
Yeah, of course. We need to market ourselves.
So I recently, I think it's been just over a month, that I had filmed a lot of these interviews with professionals in the energy sector. And I was like, actually, this stuff is just sitting. Me as a marketing professional, I actually struggle to market myself. But
tell me
of course,
about it.
You had me to push you, and then somebody else who then said, why aren't you publishing this thing? So it was December, I was on holiday, and I was like, actually, I'm just going to do this. So on YouTube, it's available on YouTube for now until I have the mindset to put it elsewhere. But it's called Energy Leadership Initiative. And there you can see all the conversations I've had with these very powerful energy leaders to talk about what they're doing to solve Africa's energy crisis.
So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Congratulations on that.